Cheers. Allan Aguirre with your incredible 2-minute warning. I'm doing a little research. I do this because this is my Bible. This is everything. I mean, my precious. I love the fact that we have tomorrow in our hand today. This was the future not that long ago, and now it's more than just an everyday reality. I'm just doing a little bit of research. I've offered to make dinner for my wife and I tonight, Shabbat dinner, and I'm going to be experimenting with spaghetti carbonara without the pork, actually. We're going to be using, they say not to use bacon, obviously, but I'm not going to use pork cheek, so I'm going with beef bacon because it's thick and it's got fat on it. Why am I telling you all this? I don't know. So I'm experimenting. I'm experimenting by doing that. I don't cook. I experiment. I can't cook. I've got two things I can do. Toast and toast. So I'm looking at like pure, authentic Roman, Italian recipes where you don't use cream. But again, they tell you not to use bacon, but I'm going to, anyway. And then I'm looking at the Chef Ramsay stuff, which I believe he does use cream. They say not to use the cream because you're supposed to serve it and eat it immediately after it's prepared. So that's what I'll be doing tonight. I'll let you know how that goes. Okay, we are in chapter 15. We're not going to finish it today, but we will finish the resurrection of the dead portion, starting with verse 22. For as in Adam all die, so also in Messiah shall all be made alive, but each in his own order. Messiah the first fruits, then at his coming those who belong to Messiah. Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father after destroying every rule and every authority and power. That's the end of the millennium reign. In my opinion, that's what that is. Because when Messiah returns, that's not the end. That's the beginning for a 1,000-year millennium reign where Jesus will be taking over the governments of man. Not everyone is, the Mina's parable expresses it very well, explains it very well. He comes to take over a kingdom and the locals don't want him to do that. They don't want him as their ruler. And so we're going to have goat and sheep nations, goat and sheep cities, goat and sheep people. Lucifer is bound for 1,000 years, and he's the high priest. The Torah is now the norm. The Levitical priesthood, according to the last 2 or 3 chapters of Ezekiel, will be reinstated. The temple sacrifices, Christians. I remember when I used to think, well, wait a second, why would sacrifices come back into play? That was before I knew, because Christians only know that sin atonement sacrifice. They don't know that there's a whole bunch of different sacrifices that have nothing to do with sin atonement, but thanksgiving and offerings and first fruits, right? That type of stuff. And then so he does that for 1,000 years. Lucifer is released and to attempt to deceive those that were born during the millennium reign. And apparently he's going to be allowed to try and deceive those that were born, and there's going to be people that go with him. It's amazing, right? Then comes the end, verse 24, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father after destroying every rule and every authority and power. So, for people that don't think we should be talking about politics, or that there's no room for politics, or that God has absolutely no interest in nation states, because my kingdom is not of this world. We just read it. Let me repeat it again. But each in his own order. Messiah the first fruits, when at his coming those who belong. Then at his coming those who belong to Christ. Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom. There's no kingdom without politics. When he delivers the kingdom to God the Father after destroying every rule and every authority and every power. I believe that's both physical and spiritual. For he must reign, there we go, ruling kingdom, That's political, until he has put all his enemies under his feet. How do you think that's going to happen? There's politics involved with war, especially when there's war among nations and kingdoms. And, right? I mean, that's how I see it. If you look at the history of man, never once was, but Allan, he's not a man, he's Messiah. Then stop reasoning with your human mind about Messiah. So, anyway, you know what I'm talking about, but there might be somebody out there that doesn't understand what we're talking about. Okay, for he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. Apparently that's going to take close to 1,000 years. Verse 26, the last enemy to be destroyed is death. And then at the end of the millennium reign, everything's wiped out by fire, new heaven, new earth. Amazing. Revelation chapter 5 pretty much explains it. For all those that think, oh, that's God's different because of Jesus. Really, you haven't read Revelation, have you? Okay, verse 27. For God, quote, for God has put all things in subjection under his feet. He is citing Psalms 8:6, which says, you have given him, Jesus, Adonai, right? Adonai, my Adonai, dominion over the works of your hands, God's hands. You have put all things under his feet. I'm going to read this next couple verses in English Standard, and then I'm going to read you the complete Jewish Bible version of it. Okay, so it starts here with verse 27, for God has put all things in subjection under his feet. But when it says, all things are put in subjection, it is plain that he is expected who put all things in subjection under him. When all things are subjected to him, then the Son himself will also be subjected to him who put all things in subjection under him, that God may be all in all. So you've got this tier thing. Complete Jewish Bible says, but when it says that everything has been subjected, obviously the word does not include God, who is himself the one subjecting everything to the Messiah. Now, when everything has been subjected to the Son, then he will subject himself to God, who subjected everything to him, so that God may be everything and everyone. I know that confuses people, but we just explained that. God is allowing this subjection with the Son, and once the Son subjects all this, the Son will subject himself to the Father. I can't explain it any better than that. Otherwise, what do people mean by being baptized on behalf of the dead, if the dead are not raised at all? Remember, that's the context, what we're talking about, the resurrection of the dead. So what Paul is saying here, so he's using all those examples. He comes back to the context of the conversation. Otherwise, what do people mean by being baptized on behalf of the dead if the dead are not raised at all? This whole argument is pro resurrection of the dead. Why are people baptized on their behalf? Now, verse 29, one verse. The LDS Church, the Mormons, baptize for the dead because of this. We literally have no idea what he's talking about, why he's saying it. There's nothing else in the Bible, old or new, that talks about standing in proxy for the dead and being baptized for them. So we have no idea what Paul is referencing. I have never found anything. I have never heard anybody, other than the LDS, teach on this as an actual thing that we should be doing. We don't believe that we should be baptizing on behalf of the dead, so we don't stand in proxy for the dead. So what does that look like? Well, in the Mormon temple, in the temples, they have this huge baptismal thing in the basement, bottom, underneath, area. And apparently they just read off names of dead people, and you go down. For dead guy Joe, bloop. For dead guy Bob, bloop. For dead guy Peter, bloop. For dead guy Charles. We don't see that because there's only by being baptized on behalf of the dead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words. they've come up with a whole theology and doctrine based on 8 words and 1 verse. We can't do that. We have nothing to go by. We don't have any reference. We don't have any context. We are talking about the resurrection of the dead, which is why he says if the dead are not raised at all, why are people baptized on their behalf? He's not he's talking about the people actually being raised from the dead. That's why they baptize. He's not saying, hey, because people do rise from the dead, we should baptize people in the dead. He's asking, what do people mean by being baptized on behalf of the dead? Is he referring to some sort of cultish activity from a popular sect that was going on at the time, right? So why are they doing that if people aren't being raised from the dead? Is he using this false act of baptism as an example, proof text that people are raised from the dead? Otherwise, why would they be baptizing the dead? That's what makes sense to me the most. Since there's no instruction in the Bible about baptizing for the dead, maybe he's referencing a practice that was done outside of the church, some cult, because he has done that. He does do that on occasion. The looking at a mirror through a glass darkly, that was a thing back then by pagans. He could be simply referencing a pagan act that everybody knew about, and he's just using that to support his position, or to, he's probably being a little snarky. So, I don't know. That's all I got for you there. Verse 30, why are we in danger every hour? I protest, brothers, by my pride in you, because he's boasting about his church, which I have in Christ Jesus our Lord, I die every day. What do I gain if, humanly speaking, I fought with beasts of Ephesus? If the dead are not raised, let us not eat right? So again, here's another reference to fighting beasts in Ephesus. No one is suggesting we go find wild beasts in Ephesus and fight them, like the gladiators or something. What he's saying is he dies to himself daily. What do I gain if, humanly speaking, I fought with beasts at Ephesus? Nothing. If the dead are not raised, right? Does that make sense, or am I confusing you? Okay. So he's using, my ears are all itchy. He's using fighting beasts in Ephesus. Again, is he using it the same way he used the baptizing for the dead? Right? Why would I do that if the dead are not raised? So that's twice he says something that. So that's what I think he's doing. Contextually, I think that's what he's doing in those 2 verses regarding maybe some activity that was known by people. Okay. Then he quotes, let us eat and drink for tomorrow we die. Cited from Isaiah 22:13, right? So again, these 2 verses contextually with raising from the dead or the dead being risen. If there is no raising, if there is no resurrection from the dead, then why are people baptizing people? And, I could fight with beasts in Ephesus if the dead are not raised. And then he quotes Isaiah, hey, let us eat and drink for tomorrow we die. It doesn't, damn the torpedoes. If there's no resurrection from the dead, I might as well eat and drink. I might as well do whatever the hell I want because I'm going to die and there's no consequence after death. That's what he's talking about in these 2 verses. I think we've okay. Do not be deceived, verse 33. Bad company ruins good morals. Where's my notes? I have notes for this. Oh, that's weird. Hold on a second. I have some notes that I'm not seeing in my notes. It's not good when you don't see your notes in your notes. Ah, there we go. I love Apple stuff. All I had to do was open my notes on my computer where I made my notes, and all of a sudden my iPad, bam! Okay. Let me go back here, now that I have my notes. Okay, let me just go back to verse 32. What do I gain if, humanly speaking, I fought with beasts at Ephesus? And then in the English Standard Version, the next thing it says is, if the dead are not raised. In the Complete Jewish Bible, it says, if dead people are not raised, we might as well live by the saying, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die, which is what we just explained. Then in verse 33, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. The English Standard Version suggests that he's probably quoting from Menendez. I've never read this. Watched Menendez's comedy Thais. So he's probably the English Standard Version is suggesting that he's quoting a secular. It's like quoting Shakespeare for us. Somebody named Menendez and their comedy named Thais. I didn't look it up. I just saw that reference and I threw that in there because everyone's heard bad company ruins good morals. Don't be fooled. Bad company ruins good morals. Verse 34. Wake up from your drunken stupor, as is right, and do not go on sinning. For some have no knowledge of God. I say this to your shame. Verse 34. Yeah, like a movie quote, correct. Or quoting Shakespeare. So this guy was maybe like a Shakespeare in their time. And I didn't look it up, but we can look it up. Menendez, Menandер, and their comedy is called Thais, Thais. Again, English Standard Version says probably that he's quoting that comedy. Verse 34, come to your senses. In the English Standard Version it said, wake up from your drunken stupor, as is right. The Complete Jewish Bible says, come to your senses, ! Live righteously and stop sinning. There are some people who lack knowledge of God. I say this to your shame. So here we are talking about the resurrection of the dead, how Adam and then first fruits through Messiah, and then it's going to be us, and then then he's going to bring us as first fruits when he comes, and then he's going to reign, and because everything's been subjected to him. So he's talking about resurrection from the dead. He brings up Messiah. Then he does his little outline. He drills in about Messiah, everything being underneath Messiah, subjected to Messiah, and subjected to the Father, and he's going to destroy every rule and every authority and power, for he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. Verse 25, the last enemy to be destroyed is death. Now he's touching on the subject matter because we're talking about the resurrection of the dead, and then God put everything on verse 27 underneath him, and then he explains the hierarchy of God putting him, Messiah here, and then everything underneath Messiah, and then Messiah under him, verse 27, 28. And then he goes, and then now he's coming out of his outline. He's drilling back out to the main theme, verse 29. Otherwise, why would people be doing these things if there was no resurrection of the dead? And he uses baptism and he uses fighting animals in Ephesus. And then he goes, because if there is no resurrection from the dead, then we should just eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. There's no consequence. And then now in verse 33, we're back to our main outline, right? Because he just did that with the outline. Back to verse 33. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Don't hang out with people that are trying to convince you that there is no resurrection from the dead, right? Come to your senses. Live righteously and stop sinning. There are some people who lack knowledge of God. I say this to your shame. Verse 35 is a new section called the resurrection body. But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? What kind of body do they come? With what kind of body do they come? And then he says, you foolish person. What you sow does not come to life unless it dies. But this whole section, the resurrection body, it's like 20 verses. We will do that next week. Alrighty. So, what's going on? Tonight, have a good Sabbath. I'm going to experiment with I'm going to experiment culinary experiments tonight, making dinner. What else? Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. What else? Monday. Okay. The new calendar is available in the store, acaciagrovepress.com. Registration for the conference is live. So let me put that. Hold on. I'm going to put the link. All right, there's the link to the conference for the conference registration. Is that right? ChamelionChurch.com Shavuot. The conference registration is live, so be sure to go and register. You can register for the conference, and then there's the links to go to the hotel to book your room at the hotel. And we're very excited. Kingdom culture is what we're talking about. Kingdom. Yeah, and that's going to have all sorts of different various things to talk about. Finances, kingdom finances, serving the poor, living in faith, calling out, reaching out into the future, the power of the age to come, and bringing it to your now. Lots of stuff out of Matthew about what the kingdom of heaven is like. Kingdom culture on earth as it is in heaven. Anyway, very excited for that. The schedule is just a preliminary schedule. We'll be updating it as we go forward on that page. But you can go to that page right there and register. And there's links there to take you to the hotel to register for the hotel. Very excited. Glad we got that up. Like we were hoping to get that up this week. What is it? I think May 6th is the cutoff for registration. For the hotels, the hotel rooms, and everything. The conference is June 13th through 16th. Very excited. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Have a great weekend.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelogue Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.